There's a woman who walks into the office every day in a $28 blazer from a discount rack. No designer bag, no luxury watch, nothing that signals anything. Her colleagues have quietly written her off. Nice enough, they think. Probably renting an apartment somewhere. Probably doing fine. What they don't know is that she has $2.1 million sitting in a brokerage account. Her mortgage was paid off at 41. She maxes out every tax-advantaged account she has. And she made her first million not by earning more, but by refusing to spend it on looking like she had it. This isn't a story about being frugal. It isn't about deprivation or sacrifice. It's about understanding a game that most people never even realize they're playing. The game is called status signaling, and it is quietly destroying the financial futures of millions of people who believe they're building wealth when they're actually just building an image.
Here's the data that changes everything. A Spectrum Group study found that 77% of ultra-high net worth, people with $5 million or more in investable assets, describe their spending style as conservative or modest, not aspirational, not visible, modest. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances consistently shows that households with the highest visible consumption, luxury cars, designer goods, premium vacations, often carry the lowest net worth relative to their income. They earn well, they look great, they have almost nothing saved. The gap between looking wealthy and being wealthy has never been wider, and the people who understand this gap, who exploit it deliberately, are quietly winning a financial race that most people don't even know is happening. Thomas Stanley spent over 2 decades studying how wealth actually accumulates in America. His conclusion was blunt. The typical millionaire doesn't look like a millionaire. They live in average neighborhoods, they drive ordinary cars, they wear unremarkable clothes. Not because they can't afford better, because they made a conscious decision that looking rich is the most expensive thing a person can do.
The psychology behind this decision runs deeper than most people expect. Thorstein Veblen, the economist who coined the term conspicuous consumption in 1899, identified something that remains brutally true today. Luxury goods are not products. They are signals. A $4,500 handbag does not carry your belongings better than a $45 one. A $120,000 car does not get you to work faster than a $22,000 one. What they carry, what they buy, is a story about status, about arrival, about wanting other people, usually strangers, to think a specific thing about you. And that story has a compounding price tag attached to it that almost nobody calculates honestly. Run the actual math. The difference between buying a $75,000 vehicle and a $28,000 vehicle, invested instead at a 7% annual return over 30 years, is approximately $562,000. That is over $500,000 for one car purchase, made once. Now apply that logic to every status-driven purchase across a lifetime. The watches, the clothes, the restaurant tabs, the neighborhood upgrade that wasn't necessary. The compounding cost of looking wealthy is not a rounding error. It is the retirement, the freedom, the options. Every dollar spent on appearance is a dollar that will never work for you again. The research on what wealthy people actually drive is almost comical in how consistent it is. Dave Ramsey's National Survey of Millionaires found that the top vehicles driven by people with a net worth over $1 million are Toyota first, Honda second, Ford third. Not Range Rover, not BMW, Toyota. An Experian automotive study confirmed 61% of households earning over $250,000 drive mainstream brands: Honda, Toyota, Ford, Chevrolet. Meanwhile, 9% of people earning under $80,000 own luxury vehicles. They are spending $70,000 on cars while making $60,000 a year. They look wealthier than the millionaire next to them. They have a fraction of the net worth. One group performs wealth, the other group builds it. These are almost never the same people. The visibility of wealth doesn't just cost money, it costs security. Javelin research found that individuals with a public profile of affluence are 43% more likely to be targeted for identity theft compared to the general population. The FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center reported $12.5 billion in fraud losses in 2023, with the highest concentration targeting visibly high-income individuals. Criminals are not random. They study profiles, they monitor social media, they identify people who broadcast their assets, and then they build operations specifically around those people. Synthetic identity fraud, whaling attacks, and wire fraud schemes disproportionately target people who made their wealth visible. Looking middle class is not just a financial strategy. For high net worth individuals, it is a security strategy. The social dynamics of visible wealth create their own compounding problems. When colleagues perceive you as wealthy, the dynamics of every professional relationship quietly shift. Bosses wonder if you still need the job. Clients suspect you're padding their bills. Peers stop seeing you as an ally and start measuring themselves against you. The moment your financial status becomes visible, authenticity in relationships becomes much harder to verify. Research on high net worth individuals consistently surfaces what psychologists call the wealth paradox: increased resources paired with decreased trust. The person who looks ordinary, who drives the sedan, who orders from the regular menu, never has to wonder whether the people around them actually like them or like what they represent. Their friendships were not filtered through the lens of perceived financial status. That is a form of richness that money cannot manufacture. Family dynamics follow the same logic in the opposite direction. Stanley and Danko's research found a consistent negative correlation between visible parental wealth and children's financial independence. Adult children who grow up aware of significant family wealth tend to accumulate less on their own. They develop what the researchers called an entitlement consumption pattern, spending at the level they expect to inherit rather than the level they've earned. Parents who quietly keep their financial position invisible raise children who build real capability. Children who don't know there's a safety net learn to construct their own. Children who see the safety net often just wait to fall into it. There's a category distinction that the Millionaire Next Door made famous, and it remains one of the most useful frameworks in personal finance. PAWs, prodigious accumulators of wealth. UAWs, under accumulators of wealth. The categories have nothing to do with how much someone earns, everything to do with how they behave. A 45-year-old physician earning $450,000 a year can be a profound UAW, spending on cars, clubs, clothes, and the trappings of a professional identity while holding almost no real net worth. A 45-year-old electrician earning $85,000 can be a PAW, owning their home outright, funding retirement aggressively, building real wealth invisibly. The income determines the ceiling. The behavior determines whether you reach it. The formula is simple but ruthless. Multiply your age by your gross annual income. Divide by 10. That number is what your net worth should be if you've been building rather than performing. A 38-year-old earning $120,000 should have approximately $456,000 in net worth. If the number falls significantly below that threshold, the gap almost always tells the same story: visible spending, invisible savings, a lifestyle designed for an audience that doesn't exist. Because here is the truth that status consumption never advertises. Nobody is watching, nobody remembers, nobody's opinion of your car or your watch or your neighborhood changes your actual financial trajectory by a single dollar. The audience you're spending for doesn't exist. The professional advantages of invisible wealth are real and underappreciated. Warren Buffett has noted more than once that his modest appearance gave him consistent negotiating advantages throughout his career. No one came in with inflated expectations. No one assumed his position before the conversation began. Car dealers, contractors, service providers, and vendors all calibrate their pricing to perceived ability to pay. Looking wealthy invites premium pricing on everything. Looking ordinary receives standard pricing on everything. Over a lifetime of transactions, cars, renovations, professional services, medical treatments, this pricing differential accumulates into real money. The person who looks wealthy pays a silent wealth tax on every purchase they make. The person who looks ordinary does not. There's a shift happening in how people understand and display success. Bain & Company's 2024 Global Luxury Report documented a meaningful pivot among affluent consumers away from conspicuous consumption toward what researchers are calling stealth wealth, quality, longevity, and discretion over visibility. A 2024 Accenture survey found that 52% of global consumers now actively prefer brands and influencers that model practical value over aspirational excess. The culture is catching up to what the data has been saying for decades. Real wealth doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. The person who has built something real has nothing to prove to strangers. The person still building the image does.
There is a number that makes all of this concrete. Someone earning $180,000 annually who saves and invests 28% of their income accumulates approximately $50,000 per year before returns. Over 28 years at 7% average annual returns, that portfolio reaches approximately $3.7 million. Someone earning the same $180,000 who directs the bulk of their income toward visible consumption, the cars, the neighborhood, the wardrobe, saves perhaps $8,000 per year. Over the same 28 years, that grows to approximately $590,000. Both people earned the same income for the same number of years. One looks wealthy throughout, one actually becomes it. The gap at the end? $3.1 million. That is not a rounding error. That is the cost, the precise, compounded, final cost of spending 3 decades looking rich instead of becoming it. The woman in the $28 blazer made a decision at some point, not to be cheap, not to punish herself. She decided that the opinion of people she barely knows is not worth the financial independence she is quietly building. She decided that freedom, real freedom, the kind that lets you leave a bad job, weather a crisis, retire on her own terms, is worth more than any signal she could send with a handbag or a car or a zip code. She is not waiting to feel successful. She already is. And the people who quietly underestimated her this entire time, they'll still be working at 68 because they have no choice. She already has one. Wealth isn't what you show. It's what you keep. It isn't the car in your driveway. It's the number in the account nobody can see. It isn't the watch on your wrist. It's the years you no longer have to sell. Stop looking rich. Start being it.